Welcome into Bleav in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson and the former Washington Redskin wide receiver Anthony Armstrong, part of the Bleav Network, and we are brought to you by FanDuel. Overreaction Tuesday, Anthony. I mean, a year after stealing one from the Bears, it feels like the Commanders gift-wrapped one to the Bears last night with the 3 turnovers and the last-second loss on the field goal.
Yeah, they got our lick back. You know what I mean? We got our lick back and feeling all salty, licking our wounds. Last night I was so pissed off, Scott. I couldn't much talk. I couldn't finish a thought. I just wanted to yell and scream. And then today, I was still pissed off and I wanted to yell and scream, but now it's like I had my thoughts about me because, man, you don't win a lot of football games with 3 turnovers, and you gave yourself a chance to win this football game, and then you went down your leg. You just made a little mess, and it's horrible. Like, this doesn't just feel like a regular loss. You're like, oh, man, they outplayed us. It's like, no, man, this is very much self-inflicted. You put this on yourself. And frankly, Scott, I had this thought, and I asked David Harrison this. I feel like the team is kind of built, and they have this mentality that we're tough and we can come back from any type of adversity. And looking back to last year, they've won 7-8 different ways, from last-second touchdowns, Hail Marys, 2-minute drives, running game showing up, defense doing it. But the one thing we don't see consistently is them jumping out to a hot start and leading from pole to pole. You don't see that a lot from this team. It's almost like a self-inflicted, self-sabotage type of a thing where you're like, oh, I love the pressure of being in these close moments that you need to get there before you get activated. But you can't do that. You can't do that. Not in this league, and especially with the next opponent coming up. If you keep on starting out slow, you're going to be home in the early January after these 18th week and being, going to Cabo or something like that, because this ain't it. They got to get that fixed ASAP, Scott.
Yeah, and last night, they held the Bears to the field goal in the opening drive, which was a win. Then they drive it down the field. They're in the red zone, and Jaden throws a bad interception, right? I mean, it looked like he was really hell-bent on getting that ball to Debo, no matter whether there was a guy underneath and a guy above him. And he did. And, maybe if he throws a little bit higher, it gets there. I don't know. It looked like initially that Ertz flashed open right in front of him. That might have been the easier play, but there was also a linebacker sort of, jumping back in coverage there. I don't know, but that was frustrating. So that was the first sloppy thing that you're talking about. Then they got their act together, got that touchdown, but they were down 13-0 by the time they get on the board, missed a field goal before half as well. And then can't really handle their, business to get that final touchdown score, but they did get a field goal at least, on that second to last. I guess they really didn't have a drive. The last one was more of a kneel down. But anyway, so you're 13-10 at half, and you're like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. We could come back here, or excuse me, 13-7 at half. They got the field goal, coming out of the half. And so you're like, okay, you're right there. And then they go on that run, and, they're up by 8 points. And you're like, okay, can they get some stops? And, of course, they couldn't get the one big stop with Swift out in the, DeAndre Swift, by the way, no matter what team he plays for, just absolutely murders his squad, right?
Man, I mean, if you got to put together an all-time beat Washington team, it'd be Daniel Jones and DeAndre Swift would be the first 2 cats that they would draft.
A.J. Brown.
AJ Brown has a day.
Yeah, he's definitely in there too. Yeah, it's rough. So I don't know, but you're right. I mean, it is a recurrent pattern. Something Dan Quinn talked about. They can't get off the fast starts, and it's frustrating because it's weird. Because team like Chicago, if you've been following them this year, their thing is usually, hey, they score early, and then they can't get the momentum, and then they lose it, and then maybe they come back in the fourth, and they don't. That's kind of been the pattern of their games, where it's Washington's been the slow starter, and then they get their act together, and either they're going to come back or they're not. And obviously last night, you felt good after they went up by 8, and they get the stop even on the 2-point play. It's like, okay, you can exhale. We can just end this game by grounding it out. Like we could do this, no problem. And they couldn't. Fumbles huge. I mean, Jaden just flat out lost the ball, an absolute killer. And I just thought it was frustrating in a lot of ways, just because it felt like, again, they were doing a lot of good things for stretches with fewer people. I mean, Debo really was a non-factor in a lot of ways last night in terms of production, but now maybe he created a lot of, defensive decisions by the Bears to open up those other guys. But if you could have won that game with the contributions you got from all the other people, that would have been huge. But again, instead today you're sitting here doing the what ifs about it.
Yeah, you're doing the what ifs, sir, and they don't make anything feel better, taste better. It's like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down type thing.
Yeah,
If I'm gonna give out a couple of pats on the back, I gotta applaud some of those depth at the receiver position.
yeah,
Those young guys coming in making some plays. Luke McCaffrey once again has another good game in a row. This guy's stacking plays. Maybe have to look to have him on the field on offense a lot more often. Jalen Lane getting utilized on a little hitch
yeah,
and go. You talk about not being able to start fast, right? Those words aren't showing up on tape, right? They're showing up on tape. Change your mindset, change your words on how you're going to do these things, and change the approach. It's interesting how there's a consistently inconsistent start to
yeah.
the game. One game you're like, all right, we're really good. Then it's like you change your whole game plan, you go do something else, and then you can't get rolling until you go back to what had been working. I understand where you're game planning and you're trying to come up with some looks that should work against these upcoming defenses. But frankly, if it's new to you, it's new to them, and they may fall into something. Go with what had been working. We got to get some more points early. That way
Yeah.
you can dictate to the defense, keep them on their toes, right? And rather than trying to react to what they have been doing. And it feels like that's what the play is. Hey, let's run something out there. Let's see. We think this is going to work. If it doesn't, we can still adjust from there and always go back to what we normally do, rather than start out with what we know is going to work, start pounding them early, get Chris Rodriguez involved, and then go behind there and then mix in some of these new nuances when you start having the team on their heels a bit. I don't know. I'm not an NFL play caller. I don't know,
Well,
but whenever
what I think
you
is
heal them,
interesting
feel it.
is they couldn't run the ball at all. I mean, they really, really didn't run it well. Had a few runs here or there. This is the worst run defense, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, worst yards per carry defense. They did some good things in their bye week to adjust, right? They really loaded the box and kind of forced them to beat them in the air. And they did for a good portion of this game, save the turnovers. But that was disappointing because I think this offensive line has been pretty good grading road grading. People have been screaming for Bill to be the future back. He was. I don't know if that was completely by plan or more about the availability of Chris Rodriguez, you just talked about. I mean, if you noticed, he was in there maybe a couple snaps the entire night. I don't know if that was based on he was in the injury report all week. There was a couple other things that popped up or surprises last night that maybe didn't seem like a big deal at the time. Like Eddie Goldman was inactive. He's a big part of the run defense, and they're trying to shore up that run defense. He had some illness that was put on the injury report, I think, on Saturday, so kind of got buried, and then he's inactive last night. At first, it was hard to tell, is this based off of what they need elsewhere because they need to bring two receivers up, or is it that they don't think Eddie's playing well, or in this case, he was sick. So, no, it was C. He was sick, so he was out. But I feel like Rodriguez was limited. I also feel like Deebo was limited physically, as well from what we had seen. Because there was a couple of instances where, usually these guys, Deebo puts his foot in the ground and he's running over people or what have you, but you didn't see that all the time. You know what I mean? The heel injury can be tricky. You probably could speak to better that than me. But, man, I can't – I don't know. I just think there was a few things that, we asked for. Be careful what you ask for. Because everyone wanted this Bill night, right? And it was built for a Bill night, but Bill did not deliver the goods, fumbled, had a couple good runs. But, man, they made it hard on it. And give the Bears credit. Sometimes teams come to the bye week and you don't even know they were on the bye week. But it looked like Chicago figured some stuff out on the bye week, and that was disappointing for the Washington side because I thought they got moved around by their defensive line and by the Bears' offensive line as well, when they were not a good running team coming into the game last night either.
Yeah, I think that I feel like there's almost too quick of a jump to go and just make Bill be the headliner and do it all by himself, right? I mean, I'm still cool with running back by committee just because everybody has different skill sets, right? McNichols has a skill set, and he did great on that 1/3 down, putting his foot in the ground. Love what he brings to the table. But I think that plays like that lets me know that person deserves to get more plays on the field. Now, I know Bill has been a great home run hitter, but when we look at it, it's more of a thunder and lightning type of a thing. He's a smaller, shiftier guy. He loves to bounce it outside. With a team that has a week off and some tape on this player, they know that he wants to do that. So they're going to tend to stay on the outside. He isn't really trying to get in between the tackles too often. He will, yes, but he would like to bounce that sucker outside and use his speed. They were prepared for that. Now, in the flip side, hindsight 2020, if Rodriguez is healthy enough to run it, run him inside a couple more times, right? Run him inside a couple more times so that those safeties have to get involved with the run game. Those corners have to get involved with tackling a bigger body. And then you can put Bill in there to knock him out with some home run tough. So to me, it's like, hey, don't rush to just one person getting the whole thing done. This is not – the team's not built like that right now.
Yep.
I think that you still have to continue to lean on everybody to chip in where they're at, and going too far, going too quick and early to Bill doing it the whole way just ended up being a little bit too much. Not saying he can't handle some of the pressure, but to go from 7 carries to 14 carries, now 17 carries, this was like a recipe from last season rather than what had been working this season, Scott.
Bleav in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson, Anthony Armstrong, brought to you by FanDuel. You know, you've seen this before where they say football comes down to a handful of plays, and that could not have been more true than last night. The turnovers are huge by the Commanders. Cost you points, turned into Bears points. It was 10 points in the first half. Then at the end of the game, instead of closing it out with that 3rd and 1, you never get the playoff because the fumble, and you lose it, and you lose the game. A lot of discussion after the game, as there often is, when plays don't go well, and you know, the team doesn't run the ball well. Why are they always out of shotgun? Why are they out of shotgun? Well, I mean, this is the Cliff Kingsbury offense. I think I went and looked at last night. Last year, they were in shotgun, under center, a grand total of 14 snaps with Jaden. I don't know if they have been at all, frankly, this year, maybe outside of kneel downs. I don't remember like plays run out of under center. And now with a knee injury, I wonder if that, and the conditions last night, if that would even have been feasible or smart, you know what I mean? But It is frustrating because you do look at the line, brought Tunsil in, drafted a right tackle. You've improved the interior, you think, with moving Chris Paul in there, that they can't just be a little bit more bully, right? Like just say, hey, here's what we're doing. Yeah, maybe we're tipping it by going under center. So what? But yet last year they were really good run and play action out of under center. But it wasn't a lot of plays. Mind you, it was not a lot of plays. But it is interesting that this year, you haven't seen that. And, anytime you get stoned, and they didn't get the playoffs. I can't even say it's stoned. But, just because there's a fumble on a shotgun snap, that everybody's going to look at that. But I don't know what you thought about that, especially given the conditions.
My thought process was this. I saw how McNichols was in the game, number one. Then they cut to Bill on the sideline. And I was like, oh, okay. They've done this because of conditions and the point in the game to where it's really important that we hold on to the rock. So that's what my thought process was.
Gotcha.
That very next play, he was on the field, and then the ball came out. And initially, my hot response was like, oh, come on, young man. But then you see the replay, and you're like, it wasn't him. It came out of Jaden's hand. But I don't know. I still feel like
Jaden by the way, Jaden took blame immediately after on the field after the game. Props to Jaden.
I'm glad he did that. Shout out to him because there's other quarterback in the league that was straight giving out other heat. And I've been talking to some Dolphins friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, dog, Mike came up and went to bat for this dude when he got this job, and now you throwing him up under the bus. But that's a whole other story. I would love to go talk to the Dolphins fans on that one. But nonetheless, I'm glad Jaden took the leadership on that and took that underneath his belt. But you would like to think like maybe you have a different situation. You treat that differently, right? Different. And maybe this week, I mean, hey, there's going to be a big focus on ball handling. I mean, it's been raining all day. It's just an unfortunate. Look, here's the thing. It shouldn't have came down to that play, period, right? It shouldn't have come 100%. Down to that play, so that's what I want to say. But it did, and ultimately they got to pick something else, and they gotta really go and fix their data, Scott. I mean, this is at the point of the season. Everything is out there. It's on them. And they know all about it. And frankly, they could use something like Delete Me, right? They could use a plan like Delete Me. And Delete Me is a platform where they go over to data brokers, where data brokers have all your information, Scott. They know your name, your address. They know which way you like to cut on a route. They know which way you like to bounce off of a pass. And they sell this information to people, anybody who wants to get it online. But Delete Me helps you get those things removed. And sometimes you got to do a little work. We're offering 20% to our listeners. Okay, you take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, you're going to get 20% off, Scott, 20% off of Delete Me when you join Delete Me. Go to joindeleteme.com/pro and use the promo code PRO, that's PRO, at the checkout. It's the only way you're going to get the 20% off is if you use joindeleteme.com/pro and enter that code PRO at checkout. Okay. They got bad stuff on tape, Scott. They got bad stuff on tape. Yeah. Turnovers are horrible. You can't win with 3 turnovers.
What about the defense? What about the defense? Look, they got gashed. I mentioned Chicago, not a great running team prior to last night. But, Swift was killing them. The play, Quan Martin actually had a really good game. But, man, that's something he gets paid to do in space, right? To get that guy down, get him out of bounds. And I give Swift credit. It kind of seemed like he gave him a little slow down just to get that, and then bursted. I mean, he's sick with that. But I don't know. What did you think of that, and how frustrating is? Because I think this is going to be a continuing thing. Anybody who's got a back that can catch the ball in the backfield, they're gonna work that, because clearly, there's a linebacker coverage issue, and teams are isolating with Wagner a lot of times, and in their zone. There's a couple occasions last night it looked like people were confused about who was supposed to be where, and I see Lattimore pointing and other people pointing other directions. It was kind of strange how that we're still having those breakdowns here in week 6.
Yeah, you got to use delete me, man. You got to get that stuff removed and put new stuff out there, better stuff on tape. Because frankly, what you see is what you're going to get right now. You can't change the personnel that much. You just got to understand where you're weak and understand teams are going to attack those exact same things. Like, you could go through the entire week of practice just based off of, here are the plays we got beat on. If we just work on those, you'll probably be much more prepared coming into the week. Because, I mean, this game, you're gonna have Pickens, you got Dak, you got that offense in Dallas that's ready to put up some points.
Maybe CD back too.
And CD. So they got A, B, C, D, and GP all coming back. Yep. And you got to get things tightened up in the back end. And that's understanding, one, the concepts that you're going to see, but 2, the concepts that have been hurting you. Right? Why is there this miscommunication? Why are there 2 people on the same level where the guy in the slot can just run straight up the field and have nobody over him? That's one of those weird glitches that happens in the game. For some reason, they continue to repeat it over and over. Teams see it. Teams know it. And it's going to be out there and challenged week in and week out. So for the defense, man, I think that's just what you get. It's probably one of the better performances that you're going to get, to be honest. The part that scares me is the fact that you gave up 104 on the ground, because that had been your strong suit. But you did get some pressure on the quarterback. They were able to shut things down in the red zone and only give up field goals and give the offense a chance to stay within striking distance. So, I mean, they've shown us that this isn't a shutdown defense. They're not going to go pitch, a 10-point, 17-point game max. They're going to give up some points. It's going to happen. They're going to give up some chunk plays. It's going to happen. But where they are showing up for us is timely sacks and getting teams to hold them to 3 in the red zone rather than giving up 7, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, 5.5 yards per carry, absolute killer. And again, those chunk plays. And it just that big play, obviously, this is the moment where you get, pay to get them off the field, right? And they couldn't do it. There's a lot of different personnel on offense. We talk a lot about Terry and Noah missing and Cosme, but Armstrong was in and out last night with an injury. I saw a lot of Preston Smith out there, and they were kind of going on that side a lot. So I don't know if that had any impact. And we mentioned earlier the lack of having Eddie Goldman, who's been part of the run plugging, and that makes it a little bit easier to double on Ken Law. And, I thought Payne played well. I thought Newton had some moments as well that were pretty good. But it was interesting, too, after the game, Chicago, the next-gen numbers were up. Chicago had been coming in playing a ton of 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends. They changed it. They played 11, so give Ben Johnson credit there. I mean, we didn't see any of those Ben Johnson trickeration plays, so to speak, last night. But I thought, he was able to keep his guys – in some good situations offensively, even when they were down trying to come back. And Caleb still, his strike zone is sometimes, he's off the strike zone a lot. Then he's really hot. Then he's not. But I don't know if you caught this. Like Troy Aikman talking about Caleb Williams last night was fascinating, because it was like, for a guy who was a precision passer and he knew when the ball needed to be out and leading receivers, and that was what he was great at. It kind of drives him crazy, you can tell, to watch Caleb Williams throwing behind guys and, waiting until he sees absolute open players to throw it. But the Bears, I would say, give them some credit that they've come a long way in a short period of time with this quarterback who's still, developing. I still think Jaden's a much better passer. I think we saw that last night. Jaden really got into some nice grooves last night after the first interception. But again, today, instead of talking about how great Jaden was, we're talking about the turnovers, and he was a part of that. I mean, two big ones, none bigger than the last one.
Yeah, when the decision making is something that you are lauded on about, and you say, "Hey, man, he's just so good with the ball, and make too many mistakes." There's two sides to this thing. One is like, I know earlier in the year I probably was saying I need you to take a few more risks,
right?
But not in the red zone, not in the red zone. When you get into that hallowed hall of the red zone, and you are right there within striking distance, you do not take risks. You do not. Let me try something. We don't do that. Not in that area of the field. Now you can take a shot whenever it's, 2nd and 8 and we go, or 2nd and 5, we out on the, minus 40. Let's take a shot to McCaffrey. Do that. That's when you take your risk. 50-50 ball, one-on-one opportunity, but not right there. Everything happens so quick. He'll learn from that, but this is at the part of the season where you got to be humming. We can't be learning about ourselves and still trying to figure out what we're trying to do, because y'all going to be figuring out vacation plans here before long. You're going to try to figure out what beach you're going to be on here before long. So get it fixed ASAP. So supremely important to get it fixed ASAP. Take your risks a little bit later, not in the red zone.
1.5 point favorite for the Commanders, believe it or not, in Dallas in this football game. I mean, both teams are pretty desperate. This division, though, here's the thing. The division's wide open. I mean, as frustrated as we are about the Commanders, I get it. This is why we're called Bleav in Commanders on the Bleav Network podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. And again, 1.5 point favorite in Dallas for the Commanders on FanDuel right now. Philadelphia's got issues. They've lost 2 in a row. Their offense has been in a deep freeze. Their passing game for full halves, which is weird because of all the talent they have. Saquon Barkley doesn't look like the same guy that was, the MVP of that football team last year. Maybe should have been the MVP of the league. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. Dallas obviously has a defense. They would trade their defense for the Commanders' defense at this point, or they probably have a couple more wins. The Giants are an up-and-coming team. They're plucky, man. I would, watch out. They're going to mess up some teams, but they haven't won a road game yet. We'll see. They've got to go to Denver this weekend, but they got to feel good about the future with what's going on there. So this division, in the way it's tracking, if you look at the South, the NFC South, you look at even the NFC West, and of course the NFC North, which is where the strength lies in this conference. I don't see the East getting more than the winner of the conference. I mean, the winner of the division at this point, unless something drastically changes and 2 of these teams go on heaters. But right now, it's probably a one-and-done division. So, you just got to keep within close to Philly going to that last month, because you get them twice, right? Assuming it's Philly. And that's why this game against Dallas is so important. It's not an elimination game, but, man, for the Commanders, it would be really tough to be down that many games, in not only in conference with tiebreakers, but also be down now with the head-to-head to Dallas, and then basically giving Dallas life, letting them get that, get back to 500. So I think it's a huge game for Washington. I'm sure Dallas looks at it the exact same way.
Absolutely. This division did start out where you're like, you might find a way to get 2, maybe 3 teams in. And you mentioned it being all the way down to 1. And some of the way that some other teams are performing in the whole conference, it's gonna be tight, man. Well, Tampa's doing well, Atlanta's starting to find their stride a little bit. Who else over there? You mentioned Green Bay, Detroit.
Your Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota's plucky. Yeah,
Minnesota has.
Chicago is the tiebreaker over Washington and Dallas, right? Chicago beat both of those teams head to head. Dallas obviously tied with Green Bay. Washington lost to Green Bay. Washington lost to Atlanta. Atlanta, is got a huge win last night on primetime, beating the Bills. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this division in this conference, I should say, that has not been positive for the Commanders at this point. I mean, it'd be great if they were in the AFC right now.
Man,
those are the teams they're beating, but that's not gonna do anything for you. Big picture here, but this is a huge game on Sunday. They're always big against Dallas, but this one adds extra meaning. By the way, another fun fact about this game: first time Dan Quinn and Joe Witt will get to prepare for Dak Prescott, because remember it was Cooper Rush both times. Well, Cooper Rush once last year and Trey Lance the second time. Although I think they told us Cooper Rush was going to play in that game. But by the way, Vegas thinks this is a high scoring game. 55.5, Anthony, on FanDuel right now. That's a big number.
Man. With the amount of points Dallas's offense puts up, and then the propensity, to give up some pass yards, you might happen. You
Yep.
know, shoot, JD
Agreed.
may catch
Agreed.
fire, right? The running game may catch fire.
Yeah.
So, and it's inside, it's perfect conditions. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why not? Why not bang that over? I
No
take
rain.
the under on the
Yeah.
first half under, I think is like 20, over under is 27.5 points. I'd probably hit the under on that one, but then you know that
Okay.
the second half could be fireworks across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd watch it on FanDuel this week. Of course, you can always play those alternative spreads if you want as well. All right. Well, I feel no, I don't feel any better actually. But it was good to talk to you and good to see you.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you as well.
just hopefully better things to come. We'll talk later this week. We'll get a preview of the Cowboys game a little bit more in depth with a Cowboys guest, hopefully. But anyway, until then, everybody try to enjoy the week. It's gonna be a little different this year. I think it's gonna be very week to week on what's available, what this team's about. But like they still got a core group, I think that can pull them out of this. And most importantly, they got the guy behind center still. I still have come away more positive over the last 2 weeks, even with some of the turnovers last night.
Yeah, they can get some W's together, right? They got to get in there and get it lined up. But this was going to
Yep.
be all about leadership, right? Find a way to win from pole to pole, get the teams fired up and get started earlier in these
Yep.
matchups, Scott, and then they're going to have some success. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and stick with us. It's been Bleav in Commanders. I'm Anthony Armstrong. That's Scott Jackson. Talk to you next time.